Alright, so I dragged my texture into Bitmap to material so I can actually have Bitmap material to material make normal maps and different textures that I might need to bring into Arnold or Unity or Unreal or whatever my output is supposed to be. We can already see that its default is giving me this looking at the contrast in my texture and trying to make a normal map based off of that. So all I need to do, I changed it to 1024, which is the actual res. And I'm going to go in and tweak some of these settings so I can get the look that I want, right? So the light equalizer looks at a texture and tries to look at it and say, hey, I think this dark area or this light area is either a highlight or a shadow, and I'm going to try and balance that out. So for some things, it might be nice. If you look at it right now, this is the default, but if I turn the light equalizer up, you'll notice it starts to kind of pull out those dark areas and kind of average this stuff so it's more flat. You see that? But I'll just leave it as is for right now. And that's under global. The relief is what's going to generate my normal map, my height map if I needed it, all that kind of stuff. And the low, medium, and high frequencies are basically the levels of contrast of it and how I want each one of those treated. So you can see as I move this back and forth, if I don't want it to be quite as rough, which I actually don't, I'm going to pull that over and then I start to tweak things out to what I want. How textured do I want this floor to be is the question. How much do I want it to acknowledge the mid-range? Do I want it to be more puffy like this, where it's really textured, or do I want it to have more of a flatter surface and just push in those darkest areas? And then the overall normal intensity is right here. So literally you kind of set that up based off of certain parameters that you want. How should this floor, now if I crank it like this, it looks, and took away the specular, this could be like an old cabin kind of wood that's really kind of falling apart and decayed. If I crank it out, it looks much newer, more refined, more sanded, flattened out, hasn't seen as much stuff, you know, going over it, and age is not like desperately tweaking it out as much. So this becomes very much a rather more of a preference of whatever look you're going for. And you see these guys play together based off of what you want, right? Am I adjusting the light equalizer? Adjust this wood. I don't want it so rough that it looks like I'm going to cut my feet walking across it. It's a little bit much. Not exactly, you know, very hospitable and not very comfortable. So it's just a matter of going in and finding just the sweet spot of what you want. And don't forget to turn it around a little bit so you can actually see how lighting is going to affect it. I think we'll stick to something like this, as I kind of mess around with it and start to see. I kind of like something like this a little more. Now, while I've got that, I'm just going to quickly run through in the diffuse color, because now's a good time that if I want to adjust the luminosity of the texture. Now, what you'll notice, watch this. Desaturating and darkening textures tend to make them look more realistic, because we don't live in a Mario world. So when you have textures and they're not quite as hot and not quite as saturated, they have a tendency of looking more realistic. And doing a hue adjustment here actually looks kind of nice if I add just a wee bit of red into that. That actually is looking, I kind of like that. And then I can adjust the contrast and make it more subtle. Now this is an interesting look right here. Check this out. Where if I crank this out and then adjust the saturation a wee bit. So this is where you can start to adjust the aesthetics and see what it looks like in lighting, more real world-esque lighting, to see how that's working for you. But you definitely typically want to play a little bit just to kind of get the look that you want. Not make it so insanely like one way or another if you're not going for like super stylized. Last thing I might want to adjust. If I want dirt, I'll go to grunge. Roughness, if I go into the roughness, remember that is essentially, is this thing like super wet, reflective? Like right now, if I crank it out like this, it's going to be mighty shiny. Somebody's just going to like walk onto the floor and slide across the room and break their neck. So if I tone that down and then adjust how much the influence is affecting it. Let's see. I can get roughness from color and then start to tweak that out. So there's lots of little ways that we can start to adjust it. And then you have your metallic and specular. If I make it too metallic, that's an interesting look. And last, I'm not going to do it for this room, but if I want to turn on grunge, remember you can go here and then choose a grunge or bring in your own image for grunge. And if you want to really see it, right now it's very subtle, but I can actually go in and start to adjust the diffuse base color opacity of it, and that will start to crank it out, and that actually is looking pretty cool. Look at that. And not only that, but I can also make it that it will affect the roughness. Look at that. So where it's essentially dirty, it's not shiny. You notice that? Which means everywhere else it's going to be shiny where the grunge isn't. I can also have it affect the normal map. Ooh, if I want to make a nice grody wood, look at this. So now just affecting where the grunge is affecting the normal map of the actual texture, height or normal. I can actually push that and age the wood quite nicely. Just desaturate it and start doing that. So there's a lot of little things I can do. Add more of the contrast so we can really dirty it up. This is another way that if I had a painted wood, I can make it seem like it's more chipped off and stuff like that. And I could cycle through tweaking out what the dirt is. This one is really nice, number 6, if I'm doing a wall texture that's going to tile horizontally and I want there to be water damage or something going across the bottom of it. This one, number 9, is really good for like, oh, there's scuffs and things and spills on the floor. So once I have it as much as I want it, and you can make it like put it on there and make it subtle. So it just gives a little bit of variance to it and makes the texture a little more interesting. And once you have that down, and I've got all the things that I wanted, I've made all the adjustments, then I can go in and export Bitmap. And so here, once again, is my export bitmap. I'm going to navigate to my project folder in the source images. Select that folder. I'll spit them out as targas. I'm going to change the base name pattern where it says %G and change that to wood floor. And where it says all outputs, I uncheck that and then just check the different textures that I want. I don't want all of them because it's just I'm not gonna use all the textures, but the ones I do want, I'll take the color base because I have changed that. I'll take the roughness. I'm not using metallic, so I don't need that. I will use the normal map, and that's pretty much all I need. If I were going to do a displacement map, then I would do displacement map. And we'll talk more about a displacement map later, but that's basically base color, roughness, normal. And that's really all I'm using right now. And once I have that set up, I just hit export. It popped out those 3: wood floor base color, wood floor roughness, and wood floor normal. Hit close, and now I'm ready to go in to Maya or whatever program I'm going to pull these into. One thing to note with Bitmap to Material, you will notice it does not let you save these as a project. And that's usually because you don't spend a hell of a lot of time in here. It's really quick just to drop it in, make your settings, and then dump it out, and every texture will be a little different. Last thing before I leave it, if you want to see a few more features inside of here, you'll notice I have these tabs. So I can actually choose a different object that I want to show this on. So since this is a floor, I could say, oh, plane. And now you'll see I have it on a plane here. And if I want to see what this looks like tiled, watch this. So now I can go in, material, default, edit, and we see right here I can see these options, and at the bottom where it says tile, I'll just type in, let's say, tile it 4 by 4. There's what my texture looks like tiled 4 by 4 on the floor. So this is a way for a tiling texture that I could see. Oh, that's not too bad. Cool. It's giving me some good variation. Do I want to change anything? I can edit the environment by rotating the scene to change lighting on it, so I could see how lighting affects it. This also gives me opportunity. You see how I can see how the normal map is working now. But I just wanted to show you that because there's definitely some cool things that you can do. And now I can see how lighting and how this will look tiled. So now I will stop that one. This is